Okay, so we've been having some technical difficulties. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I was wondering what you were up to there. Just
So,
adding to the music.
welcome to the Irikladis-Fleming show. I'm your host, Alexandra Irikladis. Unfortunately, my co-host Amara Fleming was unable to make it. She has chores. She has chores at the moment.
Uh,
Now, let's introduce our first ever guest.
hmm. Well, that would be me, which is here.
Yeah,
Let me.
leader of
Let's,
SOMR and Minister of Cybersecurity in the Mabruenian-Nicene Commonwealth, Will
and
Guiney.
I was gonna say, I want you to try to say my actual handle because I know you gotta butcher the name and something funny.
Yeah,
I think you say like Athair Aodhagán or something like that. Yeah, but yeah,
yeah.
that's me.
So, this is our very first episode. How do you feel about that?
Um, I don't really have any feeling for it. I mean, it's a launch, I'll say that, but I don't really have any opinions or nothing.
Yeah, could have gone better than it has. For
Yeah,
starters,
but
Amara could be here, but hey,
life
all's
happened.
well that ends well.
Yeah, it's just life. That's all it is.
I think the show is gonna go places, honestly, don't you?
We'll see. I'll more so believe things when I see them.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's definitely got potential.
for sure, honestly.
Hmm.
It's like, it's honestly got more potential than some other podcasts we'll discuss later, at least.
Yeah, that's true. Granted, some of the shenanigans I've seen, yeah.
Yeah, that was a shit show. But anyway, on to our next topic. I've already mentioned that you are the head of SOMR, correct?
Yeah, comma, as some people
What
say anyway.
what exactly does it do for the audience?
Well, it really depends, because the group's so big, we even have sectors within ourselves. So it really just depends where you're joining from or why you're joining. Like, some people are there just to like play games and hang out and, do that sort of thing. Others there for like, MacGov or more political things. There's some that are there for like the statehood system we have. There's some that are there for like the security and all the other programs we run. Some are there for the services. Some are there for the company side. There is literally, I think, like 20 or 30 different like things that we've got as like major contributions for why people would be there and what we do in general.
Like, y'all are absolutely huge, it seems. Global, even.
Well, yeah,
Not a lot of places in the community can say that.
yeah, we've got like, hold on, let me check the stat real quick. Yeah, like 289 member states right now and over 200k members. Yeah, that's that's pretty big. Which us getting global is also partly due to age, because we are, fun fact, older than some countries that exist, which to some is not really that huge of a claim, but we've been here for, let's see, about 15 and a half years now. So,
Yeah, by contrast, South Sudan has been around for about 14, so yeah, you're right.
yep. Yeah, we've yeah, basically I may as well just say now because you mentioned that one specifically, older than South Sudan, because that lines up.
Yeah,
I know there was some other ones because uh, in member count, I remember we tracked it because the one time we were like directly competing with like the Vatican in like member size. This was years ago, by the way. But like we had like a whole thing about that, and then we had another one about some other country. I forget the name of it, but we were basically comparing ourselves in size to like official databases for like population of, X country or Y country, you know.
that's actually pretty cool. Not a
Yeah.
lot of people do that in the community, honestly.
I
Like, you
mean,
see
well,
people talking about population stuff, but you never see them directly comparing themselves to actual countries in terms of population.
well, to be fair, we only started doing that after we got thousands of members. When's the last time you saw a server that had thousands of members in it?
I don't
Like,
think even, like, Kurdish has that many.
yeah, I don't like looking at the DNC and MGN sectors. There's like maybe four servers I know of that at any given point in time surpassed 1,000. And 1,000 is not even enough to compare to these, smallest countries. So it's just not a phenomenon that you see. Now, if they did get to that point, I would love to see them compare, because that would mean that there's another like group out there that's able to actually do that, and then we can see how they take it and what they do instead versus what we did.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. Like, we're
Mhm.
actually that big that we could potentially compare to, like, a medium sized country.
I mean, yeah, we've got like, if we had to compare to the US, which, if I recall correctly, the total amount of people in the US was like 360 million. I think right now we would make like 0.1% of that population if we were all in the US, which we're not.
Whoa.
Yeah. So a country that's that big and that present, we have 0.1% of, which isn't huge, and it really shrinks it down when you look at it. But if you look at it from the other side, then it's like, oh, like that's huge. That's bigger than a lot of cities.
So, figured I'd go to the next topic.
Sure.
KGB, it's SOMR's bot, right? What does
Uh,
it do exactly?
well, I mean, at first we actually created it for a joke. It was a meme because we wanted to have the quote unquote KGB to go with the USSR, because there was so many USSR servers in the group years ago. We just did it as a joke. But eventually we started using it as a utility bot. And then when raid clans and such started becoming really big problems, we turned it into a security bot. So now it basically handles a lot of the security related things, maintenance, does a lot of filters, checks. We use it to validate like user accounts and whatnot. So say like somebody gets hijacked, we can basically tell other people that, hey, your account got hijacked, you know? It's also a scammer's worst nightmare because it holds a lot of records, which, we do have a system for also going through because some people do request records being like removed and whatnot, mostly through the GDPR methods. But unless it's like, I forget what quality it is, but there's basically specific quality of record that we don't remove, and typically it's on CCs, which is basically cyber criminals, people who have done like pedophilia or grooming, or some people try to do like, apparently drug dealing was a thing that was on Discord for a little while. That's also counted as CC. Like weapons exchange and, generally things that like if you're in the US would count as a felony, or if you're in like the EU or some other thing, it would warrant like, multinational interest of having something happen. So it has those kind of things on there. But really, nowadays, we mostly just use it for like maintaining records and checks on people, keeping servers safe, keeping members safe, and then of course doing any act of like, security and protection for the users and servers.
So what you're saying is it's primarily used for its blacklist, right?
Well, the blacklist is one major part of it, but it's not the only part of it. There's multiple parts and checks that go into that sort of thing. But since the blacklist is a primary focus, granted the size of the whole thing, it's kind of the thing that people see the most and use the most on it. But in general, it also works as like a admin and moderation bot that generally pretty much anyone can use.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for this next topic, I'm going to say discuss this as best as possible. If you can't say something, you don't have to, but viewers would probably be interested to know what Aberrant is and what it does.
Ooh, Aberrant, the fun one. Aberrant is literally an operation created by us. It's not more so specifically a singular operation, but more so a group of them. We just named it Operation Aberrant because it just seemed to fit name-wise. Aberrant itself was also named the way it does because if you check the word, it literally stands for those who do not belong. Typically, that also covers like the cyber criminals and whatnot that I mentioned with KGB. The two are kind of linked in that regard, but not actually. Generally, though, Aberrant's reserved for the most severe cases of something happening that usually works in pair with agencies and governments and all sorts of official or authoritative figures to get, these severe or, otherwise completely unsafe individuals put away or put under some kind of monitoring so they're not a threat to other people or themselves. It's not something we've had to do a whole lot either, thankfully. But alarmingly, every single case that we have with Aberrant has been on a DNC sector, which is Discord nations. So if you're in a micronation, or you're in like a Discord nation or some online group, there is a small chance Not saying it's going to be guaranteed, but there's a small chance you might know somebody who knew someone else who was impacted by Aberrant, because that is just where all the cases and all those individuals being like caught and exposed, or hell, even attracted to, go. Like they all go to that specific area. Why? I don't entirely know. But if you ever see Aberrant enacted on somebody and you're not the one who's being targeted and you have evidence or something, come tell us, because we will take action. And granted, it's always successful one way or another. We can basically guarantee that afterwards you're gonna be safe from whoever that is or whatever it is.
Yeah, the fact that it's like mostly DNC, like Discord nations and micronations, dude, that goes to show how fucked up this community is.
Well, yes and no, because basically it's more so rather than the community itself being fucked up, which not to say that like it's not. Like there's definitely some things that are wrong and more wrongs than right in some areas as well. It's more so the kind of people it attracts and also the size of it. Because the thing with these users being exposed and caught is typically done a lot easier because there's a lot less people in these sectors. If there's a lot more people in a place, it's a lot easier to hide. So when you have like these communities with like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in them, you know, how are you gonna single out one individual doing something? You realistically, you're probably not going to. You're probably not gonna catch them at all. But in a community where like the estimated population is about 40 to 60,000, those things suddenly become very obvious, especially with how interlinked a lot of places are.
Alright, here's the next topic. You run a Minecraft server, well, multiple considering we have multiple mod packs going on right now, but what's that like?
Well, I assume you're talking about the XOH network.
Yeah,
Um,
XRH.
Basically, that's kind of like the remnants of like the Minecraft side of things, because when the group first started, it started on Minecraft. Now, the multiplayer, nothing wasn't out yet for as far back as that goes. But when we did fully get everything going and whatnot, we were on servers, and we stayed on those servers for literally over a decade. So when those servers finally shut down, mostly due to expenses and whatnot, we went and made our own thing, which is why it's modded or typically some sort of variant of that. Because, sometimes we do plugins and such. We try to deviate away from iterations because iterations tend to burn out a player base a lot, which can in turn kill things. Um, but we've slowly been getting off of that game by now because a lot of us just have done literally everything or have played it so much where there isn't really anything else left for us to do. So we started shifting to other games, but still having and owning the same network. Typically, the mod packs would be made in player interest. Like I would go and gauge like the mods and stuff that people like from other official packs, or specific events or triggers, or in some way try to find it and add it in, and then I'll basically release the pack after balancing and tweaking everything to make it all work together. The only problem is once everything's completed, we kind of just stop playing that pack. So then we go, we make another one, and then start doing iterations when we try not to. So it's a fun ordeal.
Yeah, for
Generally,
sure.
though, we have the combat pack up, which is meant to be a competitive one, but that one's probably going to be shutting down here soon anyway, because pretty much everyone's either taken over the world or has done everything in the pack. So there's once again nothing to really do, so we run into that same problem. But we've got some other focuses for the network as well, so we're going to be going towards those nowadays rather than being on there.
Like our games, right?
Yep. Yep. Mostly just other games because obviously we have a large section of the community that just loves the game. So,
So, what all do we. What all do you guys play besides Minecraft as a part of XRH?
uh, well, I mean, in general, literally hundreds of games. But for XOH in specific, we've got Space Engineers coming up. We also sometimes do stuff for other multiplayer games. Like you might see like a Don't Starve server pop up every now and then, or you might see something for like War Thunder, or you might see one for Project Zomboid. Uh, Project Zomboid, though, we haven't done anything yet because we're still waiting for the multiplayer release. But like once that goes up, like you'll probably see a message or something that like, hey, we've got this server up, and yada yada da, have all the information for it. Generally, though, we also keep it kind of public. You pretty much have to be a friend of a friend in order to get in. Mostly because of the fact that, funnily enough, we've also had raid clans attempt to attack the network server, which, by the way, failed horribly for them. They did not like our response, I'll say that.
What exactly happened there?
Uh, Basically, they tried to go through like webhook that we have and basically spam the chat saying that like the server was taken over and whatnot. And then some of them tried to join the game with hacks on and try to grief stuff. And I guess they didn't understand it was modded because that particular iteration, we had some very overpowered mods, stuff like Draconic Evolution and such. So you just have our actual players going up to these guys who are like flying around with hacks and stuff, who have like this like mecha suit armor basically that makes them pretty much immune to damage. And just like smacking them and one-shotting the people who were trying to join. And then the ones who were spamming the chat, we found an IP band. And then also reported them for attempted misuse because the network server is also under a company, which is the company that we own. And that thing is taken very seriously because it's, no longer a personal matter. It's, more of a public and more of an official matter. So, those raiders don't exist currently, I'll tell you that. They definitely had to stop after that one.
Holy shit, that's wild. But
Yeah.
our next topic is probably way more wild for the average viewer.
Oh boy.
Apparently, according to your last master file statement, SOMR has bans in place across all its servers for approximately 3.25% of Discord's monthly active users.
Well, yeah, it does. Actually, fun fact, that number's higher now because we were doing a lot of imports and stuff the other day. You might have seen something about that where we banned like a casual 20,000 accounts.
Yeah, you dropped
Yeah.
like 22k bans in my server, dude.
Yeah. Currently on like the official number, like for posted, like in the actual on Discord end, is somewhere around, yeah, it's like almost 60,000, but on the back we're almost at 89,000 right now. So there's a lot of processing to do still. It's mostly an API limitation on Discord, which is why there's so much of a difference. Um, but yeah, we have pretty much that amount of users on there, and most of the users we have banned are either repeat offenders or some kind of bots, which this is more so and like as of recent thing. Um, a lot of the users that we get nowadays is like, the typical, oh, hey, I accidentally reported your account kind of message, like those kind of bots.
Yeah,
Or
like
they'll send
straight
you
up
like unsolicited
scammers that
ads.
want to hack your account and buy nitro with it or some shit.
Yeah, basically that sort of thing. Beamers mostly is what they're called. Or it's, some other nonsense, or hell, a lot lately, we've been seeing porn bots show up. Why? I have no idea, but they are. Uh,
I
a
guess
lot of the
some
time,
people need to like goon like crazy and bot owners are taking advantage of it.
honestly, I don't know. Everyone knows it's a bot. Everyone knows what it is. I don't know why they're doing it, but they are. It's just like, okay, like, cool. All you're doing is eating my API up. um, but a lot of it is not even like actual users offending anymore or anything. It's just bots, which a lot of the monthly active users on Discord anyway, depending on what statistics or things they try to say is like the active users, could also probably just be those bots. Like it's really hard to say, but at a quick glance, if I just look at like all the percentages for it, literally about 60% of the entire blacklist is just bot accounts being banned.
That's insane.
Yeah. Like it's not even 50-50, it's 60-40. So, the amount of humans on there has also decreased a lot because of the fact of the deleted users, which we can't really say on those because, well, they're deleted. So we don't know if it's actually a bot or not because we're not able to cache that at that point. But even on those, that's like close to like 18% of the blacklist, which the reason we keep them on there is also because of the fact that it IP bans users from guilds. So it prevents people getting in from alt accounts or otherwise trying to like ban evade in some way, shape, or form. You can't even evade by swapping devices or nothing. Like it's pretty much impossible to get around for what I know. Which I have tried a lot of methods, but I'm not going to list all of them because I know somebody's going to try it. They're going to, try to hold me to my word on it. But yeah, because it's a system you don't really want to test either. Because if you're caught with it, well, safe to say it's all for nothing.
Yeah, for sure. So, you're Minister of Cybersecurity in the Mabruenian-Nicene Commonwealth, right?
Yeah.
What's your job there and what have you done in that role pretty much?
Well, mostly it's just general cybersecurity is mostly what I do. I mostly kind of have the hands-off approach simply because most of the stuff I do there anyway, or that I'm needed for, I just can kind of copy over in action, so I don't have to do it twice. So a lot of it's mostly just like the back end management and administrative sort of thing, and not really, sitting there and like watching the chats like a hawk, you know.
Yeah, I've noticed that occasionally you'll pop in and say something, but usually you're just like, hey, this person is sus.
Yeah, because I mean, there's not a whole lot required of me or for me in that regard because a lot of it's also automatically taken care of by the other systems and things I put in place. So, you know, I'm able to do basically more work for, you know, less effort because I have the things that copy it and do it for me. I don't have to sit there and do the same thing 20 times over just to, do my job, basically. I can
Yeah,
sit there and be done.
so you have most of it automated, huh?
I have a lot of stuff automated. I've even partially automated my own job in the community in that position as well, simply because there's so much to do. It's not a good idea to not automate it, you know? Like there's a point where it basically becomes the difference between human and machine, and well, obviously human. So you can only do too much, like so much. Because once you start doing too much, you'll burn out of everything, or you physically just can't keep up with it. And then that's
Yeah,
when we start throwing in the automation parts of it, and automating these pieces and these parts and doing all that stuff. Because it gets to a point where you just can't. Which, sure, you could throw more people at something, but who's to say that they won't get burnt out as well? You know?
yeah,
So, and with the fact that we are considered by definition an organization, you can't afford a day off. You have to keep going. So we just automate it. Makes our job easier
yeah.
and gives people less headaches.
Sounds like that for sure. The next few topics are going to be really juicy stuff. Let's discuss the recent drama between me and Sandonia.
That one. Would it be bad
Now,
to? Hmm?
I honestly think that the whole thing is stupid. Like, I didn't want contact with Sandonia, but they decided to go ahead and call me a threat anyway.
Yeah, it's one of those things where basically they're kind of like it's not necessarily something you would in turn respond to. So, because it's like basically they're just sitting there and poking at you. Is basically what they're doing. Like you're just sitting there, you're doing whatever you're doing, and they're just sitting there poking you on the cheek, kind of deal. You know, like is it gonna annoy you? Yeah, but should you really respond to it? Well, it depends. Because if they're poking you really hard, yeah. But if it's just like a light tap, nah, I wouldn't. But it's also a little funny to me in a way too, because of Sandonia's like history or the people like within it. Granted, the fact that there's a good chunk of them there have gotten banned for literally raiding and working with raiders, which is probably the reason why you're poking them. Because one thing we're pretty famous for is being anti-raider, and the same goes for the Commonwealth as well. That's mostly what you're known for, aside from the obvious other traits that you have.
Yeah,
Which is probably my assumption on like why they're like going and bugging you is because of that, especially with the relations and the things that they have. It would make a lot of sense, especially the fact that there's been past conflicts and past rivalries and all that sort of thing. Some people just hold on to that stuff a lot more than others. Like for me, personally, I don't really care for it. I kind of look at it and laugh. And that's about the extent of it. Because everything on my end, I've already taken care of. And there's nothing for me to do, really. So it's kind of just a fun thing to hear about and see. But for the rest of y'all, well, you would know it better than me. Because you're you, and I'm not.
Me personally, I wouldn't care about it if they were literally trying to take over the place I live in.
Yeah, see, at that point, too, with those sorts of claims and whatnot, like, because the sort of thing with these claims is I find the claims themselves a little bit funny. Because we too, like, we ourselves do have claims, but we aren't so, like, pushy, I guess, per se, on them. Like, realistically speaking, are you really gonna be able to, like, claim the place that you're trying to claim? No. Like, you would get shut down so fast, or outright, in some cases, even just ignored. Like, the only reason we push the claims on what we do is literally because of the fact that everyone around us and all the people within that area agree to it and they know of it and they recognize it. And even then we aren't even aggressively pushing these claims. We're just like, okay, cool, it's there. Done. You know. But with these micros and these other groups, I see them pushing these claims or trying to claim on other people's stuff and this or that, and it's just like, do you realistically think you're gonna be able to do that? The answer is no. Especially for a lot of these digital micros, or whatever the name is for them. Because I know there's a specific name for it. But,
They say they own land there, but like, dude, I've
well,
lived here for like 5+ years. My ancestors lived here for over a century.
yeah, exactly. It's the sort of thing like that. Like, because if you really want to push a claim, you should look at ancestry, but you should also look at active, and then you should look at present. There's a bunch of different factors you want to look into it. Quite frankly, ancestry has the strongest claim out of everything because it's, your ancestors, your family, your bloodline. You can't, like, get around that necessarily. Like, in the active or present, sure, you can move or you can, like, change places or something like that. But if it's ancestral, they can't. It's already set and done, set in stone, which is part of the reason set in stone is a phrase. So, it's a little fun to me that they'll try to go and push these claims. But really the best thing to do if somebody's pushing claims on something that, doesn't have any, just play along with it or just ignore it. Like, hell, it's half the reason why I push claims on other groups. Because I expect them to ignore it. It's a great way to tell them off.
Yeah. If that's the case, maybe I ought to claim Grenoble, huh?
I mean, you could, but what good would that do?
Well, it'd either tell them off or piss them off.
I mean, yeah. But, the main thing is, like, get them to stop bugging you. Or act as really a deterrent. Because, nobody's really able to necessarily claim what they can. There's a reason why it's called a micronation. It's not a macro.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why that difference exists. The only case I've ever seen where a micro had, like, actual influence or some kind of thing that they could enforce was the one that they did with, I believe it was Nepal, where they, had their own, like, elected official and whatnot and actually met with people and, did all that official stuff. And that's the only case, which I think you know of that because it was circulating on the news for a while. It was like the Youth Against Corruption or something. It was like the Youth Against Corruption group. That is like the only case where there's something micro related that actually went macro. and I forget how many people they have. I think it was like 600K or something. Like it was an absolutely like insane amount.
Yeah, that's a fine topic to end that topic off on. So, on to our next.
Hmm.
So, Amara went on a podcast known as the JJ Experience, and that sort of inspired the Irikladis-Fleming show, but it also was the same podcast. They called her stepbrother a monkey. Isn't that cruel as shit?
Well, I mean, it's definitely an undeserved insult.
Like
But
they like they called him a monkey because he shouted out when he was like playing Doom or something. And that's the game where you're supposed to shout out, really. It's one of those games that hypes you up. And they just spent the whole time Amara was on air review calling him a monkey. And then when I confronted him on it, he tried to say that it was comedy.
yeah, I mean, at best, it's very poor comedy. Like, if we play devil's advocate on it and go through and try to see it in a comedic tense, I mean, you would have to have some like really like dark or kind of odd humor to really get it. Because otherwise, that sort of thing where you're calling someone like that or doing that sort of thing, that's mostly just an insult, you know? Like it's
Yeah,
nothing too major, but it's an insult, you know? It's just pretty simple as that. But, why they would be doing that, I don't know. Would I support it? No. But, it's some people sometimes you just make a stupid decision.
they also said a bunch of slurs, and there was like a guy who straight up spammed the N word in the general chat over there.
Well, that's not really that surprising because it also matters too what kind of crowd they're trying to attract. Which, honestly, granted the insult, and the other additional context, it was they were probably tracking some people who were just, being racist, but trying to be funny but racist or whatever. That whole sort of spiel.
Yeah,
That's mostly what it sounds like, but I'm not a professional, so take it with a grain of salt. But it's what it sounds like.
their audience seems like really crude, honestly.
Well, and once again, it comes down to, the people you attract. You know, like, do we have any of the shared audience members that, they have versus we have? Probably not. But are you even trying to attract those people? Also, probably not. So,
Yeah, we've straight up banned several of their audience members and one of their hosts because
yeah.
we just
Oh,
do not want to associate with them.
yeah. So you don't want that type of audience, and that's pretty much what it lines up to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It just matters the kind of crowd you're trying to attract or what things you're, wanting to talk about that are relevant to the people who are watching or listening. And that's just not what we want here. So, that's just how it is.
Next topic, we should discuss the Pontunia drama because that's been dying down a bit, but it's still really interesting.
Ah, Petunia. The one that tried to claim on a core state and then immediately got, the shit pushed in. And the beauty of that conflict is I don't think they're even aware that we did several operations in the guilds and servers and all that. I don't think they're even aware. Because, for context, basically, they tried to go and declare war on a core state, which is a higher level of statehood that we have, and it's only given to members that meet specific requirements. Like they have to meet domination standards, which is a systematic. They have to meet activity standards, also a systematic. They have to have minimally 5,000 members, and they also have to be able to support multiple member states, even if they can't support themselves, which basically means if for whatever reason something happens to the core state itself, you can operate from those individual member states and make those the states of the core itself. So the core still exists without having to have the main guild functional. And they decided to go and declare on the biggest one, which houses about half of our population. When we received word of this, every army-related or military personnel who, deals with war and that whole department literally just broke out laughing because we looked at the size of Pontunia and what they were doing compared to us, and it just, it was not worth it. Like, as our official thing, because we did put out an announcement about it, we straight up just denied the declaration of war. Like, we declared that there was not a war. And also declared afterwards that if Pontunia did not revoke their claims within the listed timestamp, because we always give groups 24 hours or so after they do something to undo it, because, we're not here trying to destroy groups, that's not our thing. So we gave them that time, they did not revoke it. So eventually, we just started doing training operations in the thing, training our guys on how to do basic infiltration and basic spying and OPSEC and that sort of thing. And I don't think Pontunia ever caught wind of it. I don't think they ever saw anything suspicious. I don't think they even noticed that we were there. But we were. And nowadays, since they're doing the merger, that's also gonna spice things up a little bit because it's mostly gonna matter on how that goes and what happens with it, because that's still a developing thing. But it's also gonna go with basically the fact too that most people who are involved or were don't want to fight. They just don't. So we're like, okay, we'll probably what I think will happen is if the merger happens and people still don't want to do anything, we'll just list it off as the conflict being done with, and they're just disliked because, we have a reputation system which most affiliate it to Stellaris, and that reputation system, where it's a scoring. We use that system mostly because it makes it easier to tell where we stand with people, because holy shit, there's a lot of groups listed. So they'll just be negative for quite a while because they declared and tried to cause some problems. They even wanted to, a couple of them directly wanted an invite to the server. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to invite somebody to my server who's openly hostile with me. It's not a very smart idea.
Yeah.
So it just never happened.
You just don't do that. If someone's hostile coming at your throat, you do not want them in your server.
Yeah, which, quite frankly, I don't think they'd really be able to do anything. But, the core state requirements to even join them, and the fact that they were being hostile, it's just yeah, no, you can get out of here with that. But we haven't even really necessarily called it a straight conflict because there hasn't been any actual quote-unquote fights, there's been no no really back and forth. There hasn't been any like actual like standoffs or nothing. It's just like, kind of just a thing where they tried it, it got laughed off, and then both groups, clashed a bit, and then that was it. There's been like no further communication or nothing. Just a training exercise.
Yeah. Next topic. We have 5 topics left. Amara
Mhm.
wanted to discuss the old Commando drama a bit.
Oh, Commando. Ah, that guy. Dude who's scared shitless of me.
Yeah.
so, like, there's a lot to discuss with him. I'm gonna hit the Minecraft one first, because that one's more interesting, at least to me. So, basically, there was a Mineland server on Minecraft, of course, where Amara was building stuff, and I think Commando was on there too for whatever reason. Don't entirely know the backstory of that, but it kind of sets the stage a bit because a few, like one of the days I had gotten on there, uh, apparently Commando had gone and like griefed a whole bunch of buildings and stuff. Obviously, me being me, I wasn't gonna tolerate that. And the dude, in his infinite wisdom, decided to challenge me to a 1v1, which was pretty funny. Um, he got hunted down and just absolutely like murdered by me several times, to the point I'm pretty sure if I remember right, he ended up rage quitting, um, which was really funny to me. And the commando guy also is somebody who's a known raider, so it was a fun old deal with him too on Discord now, then trying to raid the Discord server on that side. So of course he got banned by me. And then he tried I think he was alting at that point and like going around and like trying to annoy or harass people, that sort of thing people do when they get blocked and banned. And every single time
Yeah.
he tried it, I would go and basically tell him I said hi. Or, go and say hi to him pretty much. And pretty much toyed around with him almost. And then there were a couple points where I forget exactly how it led to it. He wanted me to like try to meet him in person, which was very confusing to me because why? But I was just like, I kind of thought about it for a minute and I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll go ahead and say yes. So, me being me, asked him where to go, where to meet up. And I think he got intimidated by that, but he still told me a place. And then I told him, what day I would be there. So, we could actually go and meet. Because, fun fact, as long as you tell me, like, enough information, I am willing to go out and meet people. Like, as long as it's not something, fucking stupid, I'm willing to go out and do it. So, I basically went through, found a flight and everything, because obviously I had to fly to go to where he was, because he was so far away. And then, like, told him the flight information, like, hey, I'm going to be, on here from here to here, and I'll meet you over here at this time. And I never got a response from him after that. And I come to find out a few days later, apparently he had actually gotten really intimidated by that. The fact that I was actually willing to go and show up and also got a flight for it. You know, basically the only thing I had to do was actually wait for that date to come across and then get on the plane and go say hi and, meet up with him.
Yeah.
But he ended up bailing on me, so I never did go. But it was kind of a fun little event. It sucks though, because, I wanted an excuse to go out there anyway. And then he had to cancel on me. Like, come on, man.
That really sucks.
Yeah, but bound to happen.
You actually told the story I was gonna ask you about.
Yeah, Well, I mean, I had a feeling you might want that one because it is pretty funny to me. Now, I don't know where Commando ended up current day. He kind of just disappeared off the face of the planet, so haven't heard nothing.
Probably
But
grew up and realized he was being stupid, honestly.
hopefully. But hey, if he's for whatever reason watching, I'm still down to try to meet up with you, bud. Like, come on.
Probably not, but hey, if he's watching, I don't mind it.
Yeah, I'd be down to go and meet up with him. Because if I agreed the first time, I'm gonna stick to it.
For the next topic, what's your opinion on mock government and micronationalism in general?
Uh, well, not very high, actually. DNC, we have like pretty much negative with pretty much everyone, or at least a huge dampener to it. DNC itself has really fallen off, mostly the fact that they've, worked with Raiders and whatnot, which obviously were against Raiders, or they, you know, do things with like cyber criminals where we have to, enact aberrant and all that. So we're not really too huge fans of them, but for the ones that are actually like not in that bracket, they're pretty good. The communities themselves, like in their entirety, have been falling off quite a lot, especially as of recent. Some of that's due to shifting interests and people changing what they're doing. Some of that's due to like support being dropped for other groups and places. And there's generally just like kind of an immigration. So people are just leaving in general, or they're going elsewhere. Uh, it's definitely better than in some cases where it was before, because people are at least more aware of things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that like the people in them, like especially the major players, have changed all too much or are doing different things. So it's kind of just like a right now I would say almost like a stagnation.
Yeah, it definitely feels like micronationalism is stagnating a little, especially.
hmm Yeah, it's
Like, it's
mostly
been the same major players for the past 3, 4 years or so, and none, and very few of them are actually good people.
yeah. It's also the matter too of like you know like DNC itself has fallen off a lot harder than MGN has. So there's also that difference to line out as well. Because you know with the community health and all that, or just having the groups and things survive in general, you for one need to have interested people, but you also need it to be relatively healthy. Which what each person defines as healthy was kind of up to definition because everyone has their own thing they want to do and what their goals are and all that stuff. But I can tell from like an outside perspective, which is not very common because a lot of these people who are in it are only in that sector. you know it's very unhealthy. A lot of the issue that I see too, aside from rating and the CCs and all this other crap, is literally just the amount of toxicity that's in the community. Because people are basically all or nothing, or they're basically just being complete toxic to each other and everyone, and then are basically forming the equivalent of cliques in the form of, micronations. And that's not a good thing to have. The main thing, if they wanted the communities to actually survive or do better, start working together. Stop holding grudges, quit, pulling all these things or trying to do like, inciting or back end schemes or whatever, and stop trying to fight each other, and it'll get a lot better. I can tell you that. But what's my wood gonna be to somebody else? You know, because personally, I don't really think too many people will even hear this message or will even follow through with it. So, but all I can do is hope that some will.
So, I'm getting a bit tired. You're probably needing to get busy soon. We have 3 topics left. Would you like to go through them, or should I
Well,
call the
I mean,
episode here?
uh, well, granted, if it's that list in specific, because I saw you had put a list out. Um, I mean, I can touch on the SOMR ones, and then we can wrap it there.
Yeah, that
Because
sounds good.
basically, for the future of SOMR, we don't really have one actually. We kind of take things as, as we get it and when we get it, rather than plan for the future. Obviously, you've heard some of the stuff that we planned, but we don't plan things on a full community scale. Because to plan that many things for that many people is not exactly feasible. It's not really a good idea, and it would be very hard to communicate or, change. The only thing I could say potentially to be the whole future of the group would be modifications to the codex, so that governs the whole group. And that's pretty much it with it. Like each and everything has their own stage and their own place. So, you know,
So you
like if
just
you're not a
go with
part
the
of that
flow?
sector, you're not gonna see it. And also, what was that?
So you just go with the flow?
Yeah, we kind of just go with the flow. Of course, we still adapt and change things to how we need, but we've gotten to a stage where most of the stuff that we do, we are like basically at the top or absolute with it. So there isn't really anything new per se to direct ourselves into. But, you know, like if we find something that, interests us, we'll probably add a different like section for that and then boost up that section. And that could technically be considered, the future of the group. But really we're just here vibing and having a fun time and, you know, generally being a menace to anybody that tries to threaten us. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Now
But
let's discuss SOMR as a friend group.
ooh, Sama as a friend group. Well, that's a spicy one. Because it really depends who you are. Some people come and go, some people stay. Generally, as long as you're respectful to everyone, I mean, everyone respects you, and that's kind of how it goes. And generally, we will discuss or do whatever we feel like doing. You know, like, as I said before, we're here to have a fun time. So that's kind of how that one goes.
Yeah. That's all the topics I really feel like discussing for this episode, so let's call it there.
Yeah, fine by me.
Alright. This has been the Irikladis-Fleming show. Thank you for watching, and remember, love one another.